How's it going, guys? My name is Jimmy Champane and welcome to my ending explain for the Curse of La Llorona. We're going to start out by breaking down the plot of the movie and then I'm going to let you know what I thought of it. Oh, I almost forgot. Thanks for clicking on my video. The Curse of La Llorona opens up in Mexico all the way back in 1673. A woman, her husband, and their two children are dancing around in a field, but suddenly the youngest boy is all alone. He runs into the brush and finds his mom, but it turns out she's drowning his older brother in the river. So of course he does his best to get away, but his mom grabs his arm and drowns him too. After that, the movie skips ahead to a fictional 1973 Los Angeles where a single mother who works for the government can afford a massive house for her and her two kids. No, I'm not jealous at all. Linda Cardellini plays a CPS worker named Anna Garcia, and she's trying to hold things together for her two kids, Samantha and Chris, after her police officer husband dies in the line of duty. After dropping her kids off at school, she heads out to make a house call for one of her cases, a woman named Patricia Alvarez. At first, Alvarez doesn't want to let Anna into the house, but eventually she relents and immediately something feels off. The curtains are drawn, the house is only lit by candles, and there are religious symbols drawn all over a locked door. Oh, and Alvarez's two boys are missing. Anna manages to fight past Alvarez and break into the closet, where it turns out the boys have been trapped this entire time. And as they're being taken out of the house, she notices small fingerprint-shaped burns on both of their arms. The boys are taken to a Catholic shelter, but that night they're kidnapped and killed by La Llorona, who drowns them in the LA River. Anna goes to identify the boys' bodies, and since it's the middle of the night, she brings Chris and Samantha with her. Once they get to the crime scene, Anna leaves her kids in the car, but Chris sneaks out to get a closer look. La Llorona confronts him by burning her finger marks into his arm, but before she can really hurt him, he escapes. After that, things really start to fall apart for the Garcias. Anna goes to the funeral for the two Alvarez boys, and it just so happens to be at the church led by Father Perez from the first Annabelle movie. While she talks to him, he points out a man named Rafael Overa. He's like both of the Warrens wrapped up into one, but instead of being an agent of the church, he works outside of it because he's cool like that. While this is going on, Samantha has her own run-in with La Llorona, which leaves her marked up as well. Things start ramping up from there and really come to a head when Anna encounters La Llorona, so she lets her kids sleep in her bed and stays up all night protecting them. The next day, she goes into work to interrogate Patricia Alvarez to see if she'll let anything slip, since she has a solid alibi for the night her sons died. Alvarez blames Anna for her son's death, and because of that, she reveals that she prayed to La Llorona to take Anna's kids and give hers back. Anna is pretty shaken up, so she goes to visit Father Perez, who explains that he knows demons are real after dealing with Annabelle. He tells her the legend of La Llorona, who had a perfect life with her family, but after she caught her husband with another woman, she drowned her sons in a river and then killed herself in a fit of grief. Since then, her legend has been kept alive by mothers and grandmothers telling their children to obey them or else La Llorona will take them away. You know, an exorcism takes a long time to get approved, so instead of going with the character we've already seen take on Annabelle, Anna has to go outside the church and work with Rafael. Thankfully, Rafael decides to help the Garcias, and after that, he does a great job getting La Llorona out of their house. He then spreads seeds from a Mexican fire tree across the doorway to keep her out for good. Unfortunately, La Llorona lures Samantha out with a toy her dad gave her and causes her to break the fire tree seed line in the process. After that, La Llorona tries to drown Samantha in the family's pool, but Anna manages to save her. Just when things seem to be tipping in the Garcia's favor though, Alvarez shows up and lets La Llorona into the house. But at the last second, she has a change of heart and allows Anna to try and save her kids. Anna comes in at the last second and stabs La Llorona in the heart with a fire tree crucifix, and everyone is happy and alive. Now that we've broken down the Curse of La Llorona, let's get into my review. I was honestly really excited going into this movie because the director, Michael Chavez, is who James Wan tapped to direct The Conjuring 3. I also thought it was really cool that the villain in this movie is pulled from real Mexican folklore. Unfortunately though, the Curse of La Llorona falls into the same trap as Annabelle and the Nun, where it takes characters from the Conjuring universe but never really does anything as good as the movies it's pulling from. I guess I should have seen this coming though, because they've been trying really hard to hide the fact that this is a Conjuring Universe movie, even though it's a New Line horror movie produced by James Wan, and they showed Father Perez in the very first trailer. Now that I've seen it, I totally understand why they decided to hide that fact though, because not only is it extremely boring and poorly written, I feel like a lot of Conjuring fans, even the most hardcore like me, are gonna start feeling diminishing returns from these movies. And what I mean by that is the Curse of La Llorona follows a very familiar structure, the same one that movies like Ouija Origin of Evil, Annabelle, Lights Out, and Truth or Dare follow. The first ingredient here is a monster with a sympathetic backstory, like Annabelle, who gets hit by a truck in the beginning of Annabelle creation. Then you've got to have a non-traditional family like the one in Lights Out who's struggling to make ends meet. And at the very end of the movie, there's a big action scene where that reluctant hero finds their inner power and defeats the monster. I feel like New Line realized they had Annabelle 3 coming out later this year, and of course The Conjuring 3 releasing in 2020, so they were like, we have this mediocre movie we sunk a bunch of money into, we've got to release it into the market without tarnishing the Conjuring brand, so we'll do everything we can to remove that brand from the marketing and just release it as any old horror movie with a really relatable villain, which is exactly what they did. I really don't want to dump all over this movie though, because some things were done pretty well. Linda Cardellini, for example, is a great main character. I think she carried her role as a single mom working to take care of her two kids and also save them from this ghost monster thing perfectly. And on top of that, even though there are a ton of jump scares in this movie, there are a few that are really well put together and fit well into the Conjuring universe, kind of like that elevator scene in Annabelle. There's one where Samantha is sitting in the bathtub and she thinks her mom is rubbing shampoo into her hair, but it's actually La Llorona preparing to drown her. I like that a lot. And then there's also one where Samantha is in her backyard and she has a see-through umbrella, and that's the only way she can see La Llorona. So she holds it up and she can see her, and she puts it down and she's gone. She kind of gets closer with every raise of the umbrella. It was clever. I like that a lot. Other than that though, there's really not too much to praise here. For a movie that takes place in 1970s Los Angeles, they relied way too heavily on digital shot work and CGI. They use CGI to create puddles in this movie, they use it for nearly every establishing shot, and the skyline they created of 1970s Los Angeles just doesn't look right. It even looked like they went as far as to give the movie digital zoom and shake to make it feel like it was shot handheld when it wasn't, and I hate that look. And again, for a movie that supposedly takes place in the 1970s, they sure didn't do a whole lot to really put you in that time period. The cars and the costume design and the set pieces are all taken right out of the 70s, but it looks like they were created for a movie that takes place in the 70s. It has a really clean digital look, and they didn't do anything as simple as adding a film grain on top of this movie to make it feel like it was shot on film. The Curse of La Llorona is also the longest 90-minute movie I've ever seen. It feels like they had about 75 minutes of story and actual movie here, and then they padded out all of the establishing shots and added in some montages of all things to make it hit that 90-minute mark. Like really, the pacing is just absolutely killed before the first act is even over. The real saving grace here for me is that while Chavez was handed this terrible script, he does a great job directing it, so I don't think all hope is lost for The Conjuring 3 by any means. I'm still really excited for that movie. Anyway guys, that's what I thought of The Curse of La Llorona. Let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below, and remember to subscribe if you haven't already. My name is Jimmy Champane, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.